This is part 84 of ASP.NET MVC tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss compare attribute. We'll be working with the example that we worked with in part 83, so please watch part 83 before proceeding with this video. Compare attribute is used to compare two properties of a model. Comparing email addresses and passwords is the common use case of compare attribute. Let's understand using compare attribute with an example. To ensure that the user has typed the correct email, let's include a confirm email field on the edit view, as you can see here. Now, the user will have to type his email in both of these fields, email and confirm email. If they match, then we allow the form to be submitted and the data will be saved to the database table. If they don't match, then we return a validation error message stating email and confirm email doesn't match. Let's see how to achieve this. Obviously, the first step here is to introduce this property to employee class, because employee class is the model for this view. So let's flip to Visual Studio. So here we have the employee class. Let's go ahead and introduce confirm email property. At this moment, you may be wondering, why are we adding it to the employee class? Why can't we add it to employee metadata class? That's because this employee metadata class is used only to associate metadata for the properties of the employee class. So these properties, name, age, hire date, these are existing properties of the employee class. But you may be wondering, okay, within this employee class I don't see those properties, so where are they coming from? They are coming from the auto-generated employee class. So this is just a piece of the employee class, but there is another piece. So within the sample data model, which is nothing but an ADO.NET entity data model that we generated in part 80 of this video series. So here we have the sample data model.designer.cs. So within this file we have another employee class. So that's also a partial class. So this is an auto-generated class. So this class is auto-generated based on this table TBL employee. So for each column in this table, we have a property within this employee class. Okay, so here we should have all those properties: employee ID, name, and then the rest of them, email, age, etc. So this employee metadata class is only used to associate metadata for the existing properties of the employee class. This confirm email property doesn't already exist within the employee class. That's a property that we need to add to this employee model class. Okay, now at this point you may be thinking, why can't we add this to the other partial class? That's because this partial class is an auto-generated file. So tomorrow, if our database schema changes, and if we were to auto-generate this class again, we would lose our changes. And that's the reason why we are adding it to this partial class, because this will not be auto-generated. This is the file that we have created, so we won't lose our customizations. That's why it's a good practice to add them to this file and not to the auto-generated file. Alright, and then another thing to keep in mind is that the value of this property will not be saved to the database table. In the first place, we don't have a confirm email column. Okay, we only have email column, and this column is going to get its value from the email property of the employee class. This confirm email property is only used for validation, comparing the value of this property with the value of email property. If both of them match, then we allow the form to be submitted and the data will be saved to the database. Otherwise, we return a validation error message stating email and confirm email doesn't match. Alright, so at this point, actually, let's try to put this within employee metadata class and see what's going to happen. Do we get any compilation error? Let's build the solution. Look at that, build succeeded. We don't get compilation error. But then when we try to access the application, we get a runtime exception. Look at that, it says the associated metadata type for employee contains the following unknown properties. Confirm email is an unknown property. So we are trying to associate metadata to a property that doesn't exist in the employee class, and that's why we have this exception. Okay, and not only that, look at this. So obviously, if we want to display this confirm email field, then we need to modify the edit view. So let's go to edit view, And if you look at this edit view, the model for this view is employee class. Okay, so just below the email we need confirm email. So let's copy this HTML and then look at this. When I press dot, I don't get confirm email property. Why is that? That's because our confirm email property is not present within the employee class. That's present within employee metadata. Okay, so the property needs to exist within our employee class. This employee metadata class is only used to associate metadata for the properties that are already existing within the employee class. So let's move that property to the employee class. Okay, let's build our solution and let's go back to our edit view. And look at that, we get IntelliSense right now. So let's take that property and paste it right here. Alright, so let's build the solution and let's refresh this edit view. So at this point we should get a field for confirm email as well. Okay, so we have confirm email. Now look at this, when I save it, the data gets saved without any validation error message. So if email and confirm email doesn't match, then we want to return a validation error message back to the user. So how do we achieve that? We can use compare attribute, as you can see here. So we want to compare the value of confirm email property with the value of email property. If they match, then the form will be allowed to be submitted. Otherwise, a validation message will be returned. So all we need to do is we need to decorate the confirm email property with compare attribute. And by the way, this compare attribute is present in system.web.mvc namespace. Most of the other validation attributes like string length, regular expression, etc., these are present in system.componentModel.data annotations, but compare attribute is present in system.web.mvc. So let's bring that in. Alright, so now let's decorate. Okay, so if you look at this attribute, it expects one parameter. So what is the other property that you want to compare with? So confirm email property, I want to compare this with email property, and our employee class contains email property. So let's build the solution. Let's refresh this view. And then let me click save. Look at that, confirm email and email don't match. So we get the validation. And once we match both of them, and then when I save it, look at that, now the form is allowed to be submitted. And look at this, when I click edit, when the view loads, confirm email doesn't load that value. If you want that to be loaded, when the view loads, all you need to do is within the home controller, there will be two edit actions. One edit action is for the get, so this one is for the get request. So all we need to do here is, so we have the employee object, so we want to set the confirm email to email. That's it. So when we load this, obviously that value will be loaded here. Okay, so if you're editing, so if I say change my email within email field, and if I don't change it here and then try to save it, look at that, we get a validation message, confirm email and email don't match. And this is because of a different validation attribute that we have. Okay, alright, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.